it is difficult to define what works in advocacy in a way that would meet the scientific standards of an institution like Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health, because the expectations in the world of public health, the expectations for quality of evidence are appropriately very high. And it is extremely difficult, if not often impossible, to have the same level of certainty, the same level of evidence involved in advocacy work. But should it be an arrow in the public health quiver? Absolutely. And I think we heard today repeatedly from Senator Cardin, who has received a lot of advocacy in his time, from the dean, talking about the school's record and its contributions that have combined advocacy and evidence in very effective ways. I think we know that advocacy already is a part of the public health armament, and doing it, or seeking at least to do it in a more systematic way, makes wonderful sense for this institution. There is a lot of work out there being done in engaging members of the public to become more effective citizen advocates. We heard actually at my institution, at the Aspen Institute, we heard just last week from Sam Daly Harris, who helped organize Results, a very effective citizen lobbying network on global poverty, and who since went on to organize a global movement, he would call it, to promote access to microfinance for low-income women in the developing world. And Sam's basic message to our seminar was, there are skills that can be taught to American citizens to help them be more effective advocates to their elected officials in particular. And so there are a body of skills that, yes, can be conveyed. However, what you can't train is passion. And I think the passion that advocates bring to an issue is either there or it isn't. Right. And that's the part that people have to bring with them to the task. There will need to be interactions between those academic experts and citizen advocates, and it can go in both directions. Some of what we were talking about earlier today underscores that sometimes it's the research that gives rise to an advocacy effort, because it suddenly becomes clear, as we heard earlier today, that secondhand smoke actually is harmful to me and harmful to my children. And that research, when it became available, fed advocacy by citizen groups. So in that instance, the research came first. Some of the folks that I work with in advocacy campaigns have the idea that, if we had some research to back this up, we'd be much more effective. And then they will go out and, in effect, commission research or ask an academic institution, would you look into this? So it can move in both ways. That is, sometimes public health researchers who have created the body of evidence are not terribly good at translating it into terms that a larger public can hear. And if they're smart about it, they will realize, I need some citizen mobilization to back this up. Is that the job of the university to make that mobilization happen? Probably not. But a smart expert who believes passionately in getting that information acted on in the public policy arena will figure out a way to connect with advocates who can take that research and move it, and to encourage and incentivize its research staff to do that, and not to just keep it in-house, not to keep it, not only to seek the conventional measures of academic success, as in refereed journals publishing and publishing one's work, but also to say, and another measure of success is how effectively did you take that research, and where relevant, and turn it into the basis for larger advocacy activity. In fact, I think a really interesting research question for Johns Hopkins and for this institute is to really delve deeply into the question of the interaction between law and attitudes and behavior. Because in our experience, we sometimes see that legal change, banning something, will actually change behavior, as long as it's enforced and enforced appropriately. Other times we find attitudes just don't change. People still don't wear their helmets, right? Even though they're legally obliged to do so. So what is it? And in other instances, it would appear that it's the attitudinal change that reaches a point where enough people say, well, I'm going to make this change, and there ought to be a law. So what is it, under what circumstances do attitudes drive legal change and behaviors? And in what instances does the behavioral change precipitate a legal change that is just essentially catching up with what the public's already doing? And I think this is an institution that already focuses on attitudes and behavior and understanding social norms and individual norms. And there's a lot of gray, at least there's certainly a lot of gray in my understanding of how social norms and individual norms interact with legal change. And I think that's an area that's an area that would be ripe for further research.